I need you to. Hi there. I'm Mandy Isaacs with East Central Educational Service Center, and I'm here today for our Spring Speaker Series. March speaker, Dr. George Philhower. He's going to be speaking about your compass and your filter as we head into strengthening the core for our virtually different summer conference. Hi, George. How are you?
Hey, Mandy. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, we are excited to hear what you have to talk about and share today with your compass and your filter.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As Mandy said, I'm George Philhower. I'm the superintendent of Eastern Hancock. And if you're wondering where's Eastern Hancock, if you've ever taken 70 east of Indianapolis, just as soon as you get out of Greenfield, you'll see us right next to Interstate 70 on your right-hand side. So if you're ever driving past on a Friday night and you see the football lights on right next to the interstate, that is us. So when Mandy asked me to talk about for this Spring Speakers Series, this was kind of the prompt on the website. It says 80% of our students fall into Tier 1 category. By strengthening the core instruction they receive every day, we can vastly improve educational outcomes. In addition, by strengthening our Tier 1 instruction, we further enhance the interventions in Tier 2 and Tier 3. And I think we all agree it's a pretty good idea. It sounds pretty good to me. But the thing is that we're going to keep circling back to is that this is really hard. So 80% of our students fall into the Tier 1 category. And if it was just as simple as let's just strengthen that up. Let's just all read the same book, follow the same instructions, and strengthen that up, we would all be doing it, and we would never ask somebody like me to lead any kind of session like this, because I definitely do not have all of the answers. If it's all to me, we're in a lot of trouble. So we're going to start with just the idea that this is really, really hard. I was at a training recently, and I heard this. It said, some researchers said in most classrooms that we have studied, each student already knows about 40 to 50% of what the teacher is teaching. So that means that we're spending valuable instructional minutes on things that kids already know. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that there's anybody out there that's doing this on purpose. The idea that time is our most valuable resource, and we're spending 50 to 60% of it teaching kids things that they already know. So again, this is it's just so hard. So where might we begin? At Eastern Hancock, and anywhere that I'm talking about teaching and learning, I always like to start with this little triangle. And when we have any conversations about teaching and learning or anything that we're doing at school, we always try to start at the base of this triangle down with our beliefs. And I think the central question that we all need to be thinking about is, what do we believe about kids? Can they all learn? And as we think about that, I think it's yes or no. Do we think that all kids can learn? And I don't know that we're allowed to say no to this question. We've all decided to be educators, and I don't know. I've been doing this for a while, and I would hope that I never lose that naive thought that we can reach all students. And so maybe a better question is, under what conditions might all students be able to learn? And in my research, there's a guy named John Carroll who came out with what he calls the learning model in 1963. And as far as I can find, he's the first guy that ever came out with any type of model where he says that all kids can learn. And so what John Carroll says is the amount of learning that can happen, is proportionate to the time actually spent on a learning task divided by the time needed to learn. So for every kid, the amount that they learn is directly proportionate to the time they actually spend learning that thing and the time that they needed to learn it. And what John Carroll said that's different than anybody prior to him is he called this aptitude. The time needed to learn something, he called that aptitude. Prior to John Carroll, they talked about aptitude as learning potential. John Carroll called it a measurement of learning rate. Something else that he said was that if all kids can learn, that there are 4 conditions that must be met for all students to be able to learn. Number 1 is that they have to be able to understand their learning goal. Number 2 is they have to be engaged in the learning experience. Number 3 is they have to be willing to persevere in their learning. And then last but not least, number 4 is they have to have the time they need to learn. So we're going to tackle each of those individually. So that first one is they have to be able to understand their learning goal. So I believe, I don't know where I stole this from, but just the basic idea that learning is connecting the known to the unknown. There's all kinds of synapses in their brains. And if we want somebody to learn something, we have to find a connection to that being something they already know. So that second condition is that students can learn when they're engaged in those learning activities. I love Schletsky's work on engagement and his levels of engagement. I think far too often we get confused and we look in those middle sections and we've got those 2 compliance-driven sections and we confuse that for true engagement. But Schletsky's levels of engagement are my favorite resource when we're talking about engagement. So the third is when
George, I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to share with that too. I looked back at how many times in the classroom I thought my students were engaged and that they were in that strategic compliance.
Yeah, so Schletsky tells us that kids, they have 2 levels of compliance. They might be compliant just enough to stay out of trouble, or maybe just enough to achieve whatever grade or whatever other result that they want. But really, that's not the same thing as engagement. It's not the same kind of engagement that we see when they're skateboarding or they're playing video games or they're doing one of those other things that they're trying to learn. So obviously the target, our best hope would be that engaged students are really just seeking learning because they want to learn the stuff that we're wanting to teach them. So that third requirement for learning to be possible is that students are willing to persevere in their learning. So Jacqueline Eccles, she says that she has something called the expectancy value theory. And so what she says is the amount of effort that a student is willing to put in is directly proportionate to the value they have for it. So is it worthwhile? Multiplied by their expectation. How well do they think that they're going to do when doing that? So if a student doesn't see the learning as valuable to them, then the chances of them being willing to persevere in that learning goes down. And as well as if a student is given a task to do and they don't believe they have the capacity to complete that task, then they're also not going to be as engaged in that task. And then last but not least is just, do they have the time that they need? We know that students all learn at different rates, and we do. Like I learn at a different rate than Mandy does. So because of that variability, the school day doesn't always allow for that, but it's just a factor that we need to be thinking about. So again, if I'm a teacher and I'm trying to think about how do I cause all 4 of those things to happen, it's incredibly hard. How do I make sure that our kids that they have the prior learning knowledge, connect the known to the unknown? How do I make sure that, as Schletsky defines it, that our students are engaged? How do I make sure that they're willing to persevere in that learning task once I hand it over to them? And how do I make they all have time to do it? This is really, really hard. And it's even more complicated because we know that our students, there's a lot of variability among our students. And I like to think about this in 2 ways. So if you look at the left of that chart, and we think about any of our classes. So if you're a high school teacher, we could think about any class list you might have. If you're an elementary teacher, you could think about your class. And if you think about the names of the students in your class and you assigned every student in your class a number, and gave them pretend like we're getting ready to teach a unit on whatever you want. And you give those students a 1, being that they might just know this before I even start teaching it. A 2 would be they probably will learn it as soon as I've taught it. A 3, if I can anticipate they're probably going to need me to reteach this. And then 4, that they probably won't even learn it after I've retaught it. That will show us in black and white how complex our class is. And then we can complicate that even more if we think about just the engagement. And if we take Ski's levels of engagement and we just break it down into 4 categories, and we say if it's an A, then that student's going to be engaged in the learning. If it's a B, then that student is eager to be done. They're probably strategically compliant. If we give that student a C, then probably inattentive, and we probably have some Ds, which would be our disruptive students. If we labeled all of our students as a 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, every student gets a number, every student gets a letter, see very quickly that range of variability in our classroom is very, very complicated. And I would argue that variability exists regardless of class size. It gets more complicated with the number of students we have in our classes, but it is definitely very complicated. And
well,
then
and
if we take
George, also, I was thinking it's going to vary based on the topic. So my student
absolutely,
who's a 1A for this topic may be a 4D for another topic.
Absolutely. And sometimes that can vary depending on math and English with strengths and interests. And sometimes it could develop or be different between science, and I'm teaching unit A and next week teaching unit B. So it's very, very complicated. So if we're here today to talk about tier 1 and I'm planning for tier 1, and I just simply break that lesson, that tier 1 lesson, into 3 chunks. And if we say there's the before I'm teaching it chunk, there's the while I'm teaching it chunk, and the after I'm teaching it chunk, what do I need to do to plan for range variability among those students in terms of readiness and engagement for those 3 parts of the lesson? It really shows how complicated this is. And again, we're going to circle back around to the idea that this is very, very hard. We're asking our teachers to do tasks that are very hard, and I think our teachers they're doing miracles every day by getting results that we're getting, and it's incredibly hard, the work we're doing. So this is how I know this is incredibly hard. These are the 2 students that I live with every day. So you can see there's huge variability between Eli on our left and Riley on the right. This is several years ago when we went to see Santa Claus. So if I were just trying to accomplish this task as a parent, you can see meeting the needs of these 2 learners was very difficult. So we were looking before we went live that being a parent really makes you think hard about how hard the job of teaching is, and that is no more true than it is in my family. So what can you do? So I believe that we don't have to get it all figured out to take a step forward. And I think that, again, if we did have it all figured out, I would be giving more answers. If there was a book to be read or a presenter we could pay or somebody else that would tell us all the answers, then we would make all of that happen. But that is not the case. I think while we don't have all the answers, what we do need is a way to make decisions. So what we've done at Eastern Hancock is that we've established 4 priorities. And these priorities do 2 things for us. One, they're our compass. So we know that these 4 priorities tell us the direction we want to be heading. And they also serve as a filter for us as we're making decisions. So when we talk about these 4 priorities and we're making decisions, if yes, and we're asking if we can do something, if they serve the purpose of helping us move towards those priorities, then we're going to say yes. And if they don't, then it's a no. So it serves as a filter for our decision making and also serves as a compass as we're trying to figure out what do we need to do so that we're heading the direction that we want to be heading. So for us, the first priority that we have in our district, we call joy. And we really want to be intentional about designing magical moments. We believe that school should be fun. And we think that if we don't do this on purpose, almost the gravity of school is the opposite of fun. If we think about February during the school year, we just made it through it. It seems like not too long ago, but we're almost in March now. It's a long month, and fun has to be planned on purpose or we're going to struggle. So just some of the fun things that we've done. Up in the top left, you can see we had a group of engineering students at our high school design a car for a student who has some mobility issues that she drives around our school now. At the bottom left, I get to officiate a wedding every year between the letters Q and U for our first grade who are learning about the Q blend. In the middle of the screen, you can see our mascot. He makes an appearance every so often. Also in the middle of the screen, you can see we've got a WWE looking belt with an EH in it that we pass around just for fun every so often. At the bottom right, you can see we decorated doors. The lady holding that WWE belt is I don't even know what to call her. She is magical herself, but she is the Joy Queen. So she said one weekend that we were going to come in on a Sunday and decorate every teacher's classroom door before Halloween. So this is what we did on a Sunday with our families, and teachers walked in on a Monday with their classroom doors decorated. At the top right, you can see it says Royal Secret. She came to me about a year and a half ago and said, hey, I want to do something and I need your permission. And I've pretty much told her, you don't need my permission. We're going to do it. And she said, time I do because I want to dig holes all over campus and I want to bury things, and I need to do it in enough time so that grass grows over it. And we're going to have a scavenger hunt for our staff when they come back to school. So we had 5 prizes. You can see that 4 of those have been solved. The bottom right one is still hidden somewhere. She got some donations in the community and then literally went to the jewelry store and bought jewels that are hidden all over the place for our staff to have some fun with their families on the evenings and the weekends. So joy is that first priority for us, and we really try to do it on purpose. So we design magical moments. Number 2 is connection. We really want to prioritize people. And I think it's also something that we've got to do on purpose. We want to be known as the place that knows the most about our kids and knows the most about each other, because we feel like that if we want to teach them, we have to know them. And so some things that we do to make it feel a little more like home. At the top left, you can see Rosie and Ernie. Those are our therapy dogs. Rosie is mine on the top left with the pink scarf. She was the flower girl in the QU wedding you saw on the previous page, and Ernie was a ring bearer. And Ruth comes to school with me every day, and I drop her off. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this is a sign that hangs at our counselor's office where there's a QR code for people that want to schedule appointments with Rosie. At the bottom of the screen, you can see Ernie hanging out in a 7th grade classroom. And then you can see at a staff meeting that food is definitely a important part as we're trying to make connections. Some other things that we've done is just last week, we finished up what we call Passion Project. We had teachers who came up with 37 different mini courses kids could take, and there was really no rules. They could come up with whatever they wanted, but it had to be something that hopefully they were interested in. And the goal was for students to choose into activities with teachers to get to know them a little bit better, and also it gave us an opportunity to get to know kids in a different light as well. So we had classes on remaking furniture, and we had horses on campus, and people were learning how to take care of horses. And we had dog training classes, and we had a class that studied the NCAA bracket, and they were trying to predict the seeds. And we had a pickleball class, and basically you name it, we did it. We had a group of firemen on campus teaching kids how to use the jaws of life and give them skills that they might want if they're interested in being firemen. So that week,
George, one of the great things about that too is that they become our kids, all of your kids,
that's
because
right.
you have kids going to teachers to learn things that may not be their teacher.
And you know what? I would say our engagement was as high as it's ever been. Our attendance was as high as it's ever been, both students and staff. We did not give out one grade during all of that time. So we learned a lot too, and it allowed us the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. One of the things we learned too is that we had some kids that surprised us by things that they were really, really good at. And it taught us that sometimes we don't measure things at school that kids are good at. So it told me that we need to do a better job of giving kids all kinds of opportunities to showcase the things that they love and that they're good at. Something else is when we hire a new staff member, we have a little celebration party. I want to meet all of our new staff members that come in. So they come into a meeting with me. And while they're in my office, our specialist is sneaking their family into our boardroom. And then when they are finished meeting with me, I send them out with one last meeting with Jenny, our HR specialist. They walk in to see Jenny, and their whole family is there to surprise them, to celebrate them with cookies and a tour of the school so that their family can see their class. So obviously, when we're hiring young teachers, their parents love that and their grandparents love that. And we really feel like if we want to impact learning, then we have to be as people-centered and prioritize people as much as we possibly can. So number 3 for us is growth, right? We're a school, so we want to measure growth and inspire growth in all the ways that growth can be measured and inspired. And we don't think maximum growth is possible without joy and connection. But once we're focusing on growth, we want to double down on growth, and we want every ounce of growth that we can squeeze out of every day possible. And we think that it's important that kids aren't the only ones growing in our school, that we believe that if kids really are going to grow the most, then we also have to grow the most as well. So we're in the process right now of scrapping our teacher evaluation plan, and we're creating a teacher growth plan. And that's been one of the most fun things that I've been able to engage in, that work to talk to teachers about what do you need to grow as an educator. And I think that's incredibly valuable. We're also, as Mandy knows, we've been working pretty closely with Mandy and looking into PLC Plus. We really believe that it's going to grow together, that we've got to work together and learn from each other, that we're our most valuable resource. So PLC Plus has been a good tool to help us think through that. And then last but not least, our fourth priority is success. And what we say is we're future focused. And what that is just a reminder that our job is not test scores and GPAs, that our job is to make sure that we're preparing kids for whatever they're going to do when they're finished graduating high school. So we want to make sure that we bridge that gap as best as we can. So we're working through a profile of a graduate. We really want to make sure that we're taking our time rolling that out so that it's a meaningful part of the work that we're doing every day, and that we're able to see evidence of that profile of a graduate in our community. We also have a teacher who spends half her day coordinating a work-based learning opportunity. She meets with students to talk about what do they want to do when they're finished graduating high school. My high school principal and I meet with all of our juniors and seniors one-on-one towards the beginning of the year. And we a quick meeting where we just ask them, what are your plans after high school? What do you hope to do? And then we have quarterly community meetings where we invite community members into our school. We call them cafe meetings, community and family engagement. And we show them work that we're doing, give them a tour of our school. And then in the end, we want business cards because we want to connect our kids with them. We want them working. We want our kids working in their organizations. We want them coming into our classroom. Andy, I don't know about you, I've been in school just about every day since I was 5, whether it was elementary, middle school, high school, college, job. That's all that I know is school. I feel like I've learned a lot about school, but I haven't learned a whole lot about much else. So if I'm going to help any kid learn what our community partners need from them, then I'm going to have to invite them in so they can help us with what they need. So we really work hard on relationships with them. We try to get them into our classrooms as much as possible. And ultimately, we'd love our kids working in their spaces so that we can make sure that we're giving those experiences. I try to think about it as like real world experience with training wheels. So, giving them as authentic of a experience as possible, but with the support of school there so that we can help coach and teach them. And honestly, so that fourth priority, success, also helps drive growth, because I think if we ever want to maximize engagement in our classrooms and maximize the perseverance, that willingness to persevere, then our kids need to see school as something that's worthwhile and something that has a purpose. And I'm probably not going to convince them that algebra is worthwhile, but I might be able to convince them that algebra itself is worthwhile as a step towards a meaningful, like a job, or a future career that they need to go to college for. So those are our four priorities at Eastern Hancock. And I want to review this again, because I think it's our purpose, right? So 80% of our students fall into the tier one category. By strengthening the core instruction they receive every day, we can vastly improve educational outcomes. In addition, by strengthening our tier one instruction, we further enhance the interventions in tier two and tier three. And again, Mandy, you can probably get what I'm going to say. This is really, really hard. And honestly, in fact, if it's just up to me, like if it's my job to come up with all the ways that we're going to make this happen at Eastern Hancock, it's impossible. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not capable of doing it. I didn't do it when I was a teacher. I'm certainly not going to do it now when I'm a superintendent. So our strategy is to have a compass and a filter for our decision making. And pretty much if our teachers want to do something that fits within the realm of those four priorities, all of those examples I gave you, I don't think any of them were my idea. I think they were all things that we've said, hey guys, you have permission to do things as long as they're within this, within our four priorities. And we've got some incredible staff members who have come up with some pretty incredible things. So these are our four priorities: joy, connection, growth, success. We're pretty proud of them. We feel like it's a pretty good way for us to make decisions. Again, I've circled around this idea that this is so hard. And in fact, we may not see whatever percentage we're aiming for, in terms of reaching all kids and helping them all grow. I can probably imagine that I'm not going to see anything that's going to make me content by the time I retire. But I saw this recently, a while back. I read a book by Scott Harrison. He is the founder of the charity Water. And if you're into books, I would highly recommend this one. And this is not his quote, but it's a picture he took. The quote is, "Do not be afraid of work that has no end." And I can't think of any better way to end this. That yes, this is hard, but it's absolutely worth it. And if we work together, I think we're going to be surprised with the amazing things that we're going to be able to do.
Oh, George, thank you so much. I'm Marty Hoofer, the Digital Content Manager for Keep Indiana Learning. And Mandy, I'm assuming you are like I do, that you have lots of little notes that you scribbled as George talked.
I did. And I love one of the things that George has shared with me before, why we had talked about having him come on today, is those pillars. And I don't know if we have time for him to share, but George, about how you determined what those pillars, those guiding pillars are for your corporation.
Yeah. So we, last year was my first year at Eastern Hancock, and throughout the year, we spent a whole year doing what we call our strategic planning process. And so we just started talking about, what are our hopes and dreams for the future of Eastern Hancock? And, and as we would imagine a place, we wanted to be a place that was fun, that people looked forward to coming to every day. So that to us is joy. If it's a place where I experience joy, I'm going to want to come back to every day. But we know that the year's long, and I probably wouldn't enjoy Disney World if I had to go there every single day. But eventually, I do love going to places where I feel connections, and so that was the second priority, is that we want to be the most people-centered place that we could imagine. And obviously we want extraordinary growth, and we want to be a place that is future focused. So those all came from conversations of strategic planning as we envisioned what kind of place do we want to be.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, and what I find interesting, George, about all four of those is I know connection is one of the words, but just how connected they all go. That joy leads to connection, and success comes from growth and connect. It's just this beautiful web of pillars. It's such a great word, Mandy, to drive what you're doing forward. And I agree with you. Education is hard. Rewiring brains is really, really challenging. But with these things as your pillar, how much more enjoyable is it to rewire those brains? And those brains want to be rewired, and they're receptive to that.
Yeah, we couldn't be more excited. So we also, there's an order to it. Like you said, that for us, joy is the invitation. So that's kind of step one, right? Like if we can convince you that this place is fun, it's probably someplace you want to come back tomorrow. And then you're going to learn that, hey, people care a heck of a lot of you. And then you're going to realize, oh, wait, I'm learning stuff while I'm here too, which breeds confidence, which leads to success. And then there's a flywheel effect also, because once you're feeling that success, then that leads to more joy and more connection. And so it was definitely intentional as we've designed it. And, we couldn't be proud. I work with an incredible team. Mandy knows a lot of them. So, a lot of I get to do is ask questions, sit back and take notes. And, they're pretty incredible people.
Well, Mandy and George, thank you so much for being a part of this Strengthening the Core series. George, you're right. It's hard, but wow, the good work that you guys are doing at Eastern Hancock. That what I like about what you said, this doesn't apply just at the district level. A school could do this. A teacher in her little classroom with her four little walls could take these same ideas and run with them and then watch the magic happen. So I appreciate you sharing as part of the Strengthening the Core series that we have with all the education service centers of Indiana this spring. All of these are leading up to our virtually different conference on June 13th and 14th, where we'll have more ideas for you to strengthen the core. So thank you so much, George and Mandy, and viewers, we appreciate you, and we hope to see you at our next spring speaker event in April. So thank you so much.